Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive. We're going deep into the world of animal social networks.
Like Animal High School.
Kinda, but with way higher stakes. We're not just talking about who's friends with who. This is about connections that can determine whether a guppy finds a mate or if a monkey survives a hurricane. All thanks to The Well-Connected Animal by Alan Dugatkin.
It really changes how you see animals.
Right. We think of them as individuals, but this book shows they're part of these complex hidden societies, like those guppies. I mean, you wouldn't think these little fish would be eavesdropping on each other, but Dugatkin says they learn a ton from each other's behavior.
Especially when it comes to danger. Seeing another guppy freak out. Valuable intel. It's all about gathering information, which helps them survive, right?
Well, guppies use those observations not just for survival, but for, well...
romance.
Exactly.
Like, oh, she's into him. Noted.
Pretty much. It's like a guppy dating app, but they're observing instead of swiping.
Okay, hold up. From guppy dating pools to a Caribbean island, we're jumping to Cayo Santiago, home to those famous rhesus macaques. Oh yeah. Decades of research on those macaques and their social lives, and...
Well, get back with the iPad.
We'll save that for another time. What's fascinating is how these macaque social networks work. Think about it. Mating season. Hormones are everywhere. The females, they're all about a few key players.
The influencers.
You got it. But then, babies arrive. Everything changes. Suddenly, it's less about the influencers and all about caring for those little ones. The networks, they spread out. Mother-infant bonds become the focus.
Adaptable much. Okay, from monkeys to birds, we're heading to the rainforests of Costa Rica. Get ready for the long-tailed mannequin putting on a show that would rival anything on Broadway.
They're not just great dancers, they're surprisingly long-lived, often reach 20 years old. And here's the kicker. Their social lives as youngsters predicts their success as adults.
Wait, like awkward teenage mannequin dances predict who gets the spotlight later on?
Basically, researcher David McDonald looked at how connected they were in those younger years. The ones with more connections, more buddies early on, they became the successful singers, attracting all the mates.
Building their reputation from day one.
Exactly. Social capital isn't just for mannequins, it's huge for survival across the animal kingdom.
Survival, like staying alive survival.
Exactly. Take the wire-tailed mannequin. They need a good territory to attract a mate, raise their young.
Prime real estate.
Right. And the males with more connections. They were more likely to claim and defend those territories.
Connections give them an edge. It's not just about dance moves, it's about resources and passing on their genes.
Absolutely. And those connections, they can mean the difference between life and death, especially when something like a hurricane hits.
You're bringing us back to the Cayo Santiago macaques, aren't you?
Yeah.
The ones who rode out Hurricane Maria. How do they handle that?
Remember how their social network shifted depending on mating or babies? After Maria, they became even more social. They formed more of those weaker ties.
Like expanding their support system to deal with the stress. Makes you think about the importance of even those casual connections in our own lives.
Right. And this research was only possible because of the long-term study of this macaque population. Speaking of challenging research, how about studying birds in a bustling city?
You mean like those sulfur-crested cockatoos in Sydney?
Those city slickers. They're amazing. So researchers launched Wing Tags, a citizen science project. They tagged over 100 cockatoos, and anyone can report sightings through an app. Walk your dog, see a tagged bird, snap a pic, and boom, you're a scientist.
No way.
It's incredible data showing these cockatoos. They're forming complex networks right in the city, little cliques amidst all the chaos.
This is already blowing my mind. We've barely scratched the surface, but it's clear. These social connections, they're crucial, not just for popularity, but survival, traditions. It's amazing.
And we're just getting started. We haven't even touched on how these networks affect things like how long they live or how they deal with social ladders.
Those gotta be kidding me.
I'm just getting warmed up. It's easy to think of animal social networks like they're set in stone.
Like once a friend group, always a friend group.
Yeah. But they can change so much, just like our social lives, right? Different situations, different needs.
Totally. My high school friends are not the ones I'd pick for. Like a research expedition. Speaking of expeditions, how do these networks play into how animals actually get places?
You're talking about travel, whether it's finding food, migration, or just moving around their territory. Animals rely on their connections to navigate.
Okay, who are we traveling with first?
Homing pigeons. Everyone's heard about their incredible navigation skills.
Yeah.
But as a flock, how do they make decisions?
I always pictured them just individually finding their way back, like tiny GPS units with feathers.
Not that simple. Andrea Flack at Oxford, she wanted to know how they navigate together. She took groups of pigeons, some were totally new, released them, tracked their flight paths.
Pigeon road trip, what'd she find?
A leadership network formed. Some pigeons consistently took the lead.
The alpha pigeons.
Not necessarily, they were just the best at finding updrafts, those rising columns of air.
So they were like riding the wind, and the others followed.
Exactly. Even in these everyday activities, social connections matter.
It's like having a friend who knows the best shortcuts.
And this ability to adjust travel based on what others are doing, the environment, it's huge for animals in tough environments. Like, imagine those Tibetan macaques.
Okay, paint me a picture.
Steep slopes, unpredictable weather, food sources that appear and disappear, hard place to live. They live in big social groups, but they often split up, especially when they're looking for food.
Strategic snack breaks.
Exactly. Jinhua Lai's research found that the females, who are key for keeping the group tight-knit, they often initiated these splits. Their travel networks matched their relationships.
Girls trip. We're out of here to find some grub.
Exactly. And this whole splitting and merging thing, it's common, especially in unpredictable places.
More primate adventures.
To Brazil, home of the marikis, largest primates in the Americas.
Marikis, aren't those the ones with the amazing fur?
That's them. They're also a splitting and merging society, always on the move. But there's still a structure to their travel.
Organized chaos.
Right. Mauricio Tokuda's research found certain marikis acted as super connectors, bridging different subgroups, keeping information flowing.
The social butterflies.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone's in the loop.
Exactly. And those connections matter for finding food in a constantly changing forest.
So adaptable. But what about animals that travel really far? Across continents?
Now you're talking migration, like the European white stork.
Thousands of miles. How do they do it without, like, a bird GPS?
Instinct is part of it, but also social learning. Andrea Flack, remember her with the pigeons? She tracked young storks, fitted them with tiny GPS loggers.
High-tech bird watching.
And guess what? Just like those pigeons and updrafts, the young storks seem to learn from the more experienced ones.
So even those incredible migrations have an element of, hey kids, watch this.
Exactly. Behavior, instinct, social learning, all intertwined.
Okay, so we've got finding food, epic migrations. What else?
Think about communication. Not just directions, but dangers, resources, gossip.
Like, don't fly over there, there's a grumpy hawk.
Exactly. And it's even more vital in the animal world than for us, even with our phones and maps.
So who are the expert animal communicators we're meeting?
Remember those chimps in Burdungo Forest? Not just how they travel, but how they talk?
The gesture dictionary.
Right. And more than that, it's expressions, postures, touch. Anna Roberts and Sam Roberts, they're decoding the silent language.
What are they saying?
Everything from want some fruit to back off, she's mine, to let's groom and gossip.
All that without a single word.
And those communication patterns, they mirror their relationships. Gentle touches, embraces, more common between chimps with strong bonds.
A hug says it all.
Exactly. Communication isn't just words, it's those subtle interactions, how we connect.
When we talk about animal communication, we often think about alarm calls or mating rituals, those quick, instinctual things.
Right, but what about the more complex stuff, the kind of communication that involves actual learning, passing knowledge down through generations?
You're talking about cultural transmission, right? One of those fascinating topics out there. I mean, it really makes you wonder what makes us human.
It's a big question, and one of the best examples is that classic story of Imo, the Japanese macaque, the one who taught her troop to wash their food.
Oh yeah, imagine those macaques snacking on their sweet potatoes, and suddenly one of them decides, I'm gonna wash this sand off in the ocean.
A total rebel. But then others start copying her, and there you have it, a brand new behavior is born.
What a trendsetter. It really makes you think.
Yeah.
What other emo moments are happening right now that we don't even know about?
Right, researchers are finding more and more examples all the time, and some of them really challenge what we thought we knew about how this whole cultural transmission thing works.
Okay, you've got to give me an example.
Let's go back to those chimps in Budongo Forest, the ones with the amazing communication skills.
Oh yeah, all those gestures.
Well, researchers observed something new in one of the groups. They were using moss to soak up water.
Moss as a sponge. That's pretty clever.
It is, and what's amazing is researchers think it all started with one chimp, Nick. He just figured out you crumple up some moss and bam, you've got this absorbent tool for water.
Talk about an aha moment. So how did it spread? Does everyone just copy Nick?
That's where it gets even more interesting. Researchers were watching super closely, analyzing tons of footage. Some chimps definitely learned by watching others, like classic social learning. But here's the twist. Some chimps seem to learn by finding discarded moss sponges and experimenting with them.
No way. So they weren't just mimicking, they were figuring things out on their own.
Exactly. Like one chimp, Quara, seemed to invent her own method based on a discarded sponge. Never even saw anyone make one directly.
So it's this mix of learning from each other and individual innovation. That's incredible.
It really is. Challenges those old ideas of animals just mimicking. They're problem solving, coming up with their own ways of doing things.
It's like they're not just learning, they're actually coming up with new ideas.
And that opens up all these questions about how animal cultures evolve. It's not just about watching others, it's about interacting with the environment, building on what others have done.
It really makes you appreciate just how intelligent and adaptable these animals are.
It really does. It shows us that we can't just look at behavior in isolation. We have to think about the social networks, the environment, their communication, even the microbes living inside them.
Right, it's all connected.
Exactly. Like we've seen throughout our deep dive, animal societies are even more complex than we ever imagined.
It's mind-blowing. And to think we're just starting to scratch the surface.
There's so much more to learn.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the amazing world of animal social networks. From guppies to whales, it's incredible how these connections shape every aspect of their lives.
From finding food to surviving hurricanes, passing down traditions, even how they communicate. It's amazing.
It really makes you wonder, what other secrets are out there just waiting to be discovered?
I can't wait to find out.
Me neither. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to check back for more deep dives into the wonders of the animal kingdom.